So my husband Florian turns to me the other day at dinner, and he goes, "Honey, I can't do it. I can't take the instability and the uncertainty of running my own business. It is killing me. I'm going to close it down. I'm going to get a nice, safe, stable corporate job." Now, maybe my response wasn't the most wifely, wonderful, loving response that I mean, what would you have said? So I couldn't help it. I started to laugh. And he goes, "Honey, I'm serious." I said, "Oh, darling, I know you're serious. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing that you think a corporate job is stable and secure. Because since the year 2000, 52% of Fortune 500 companies have vanished. They've gone bankrupt, they've been acquired, they just cease to exist. So stability, certainty, there isn't any. And I want to wave that magic wand we coaches talk about, and I want to make statistics like this disappear. But I can't, and you can't. And instead, we have to embrace that the only certainty is that change will be coming. So why does that matter to you? Because your clients are drowning. They are running at a frantic pace just to stay afloat. They are demotivated, they are stressed out, they are burnt out, they are unhappy, and they are definitely unfulfilled. But you, as their coach, you can help them. You, as their coach, can have the tools to get them from just surviving, just getting by, to being able to once again thrive. And you will hear in my voice that I am so passionate about this topic. I've been accidentally working on it for the last 8 years. I run my own firm, Christen Coaching and Consulting, and we work with these large organizations. Many of them are these Fortune 500 clients. And they come to us, they say, "We need your help. I help leaders thrive in the 21st century, so all of these challenges, these new ones that we're facing." And they come to me and they say, "We need team development, we need innovation. We need change management." Do you know what they're actually asking me for? They're asking me to help their employees. Can you help my employees to be able to deal with the fast pace and the uncertainty of what's going on? And by the end of today, when your clients ask you that, you're going to be able to say, "Yes, I can help you with that." Does that sound good? Good. So first of all, before we can thrive in ambiguity, and you've heard the word a lot today, it seems to be a big theme because it's at the front of our minds, I wanted to share my definition. So ambiguity is unclear. It's also possibly unknowable. And there are many possible interpretations and therefore many possible solutions. Do I have any perfectionists in the audience? Because I'm a recovering perfectionist and this is scary. Right? What do you mean there's no right answer? I like the certainty of 2 + 2 always equals 4. What do you mean I'm not going to get it right this time? Potentially. Or ever. Because it might be unknowable. This is what we're facing. This is what our clients are facing. And let me give you an absolutely true example. I can't make this up. This is from the summer in the New York Times Magazine. Scientists are giving dead brains new life. What could go wrong? Right? So scientists at Yale have figured out, they started with pig brains, they may have moved on to human brains. They figured out how to separate it from the living body but keep the brain consciousness available. This raises a lot of questions. First of all, what is consciousness? What does it mean to be alive? Does that have feeling and have brains? Is this ethical? Who's going to regulate this? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it the US? Is it some world organization? Who's going to be liable when something goes wrong with the experiment? Unknowable, uncertain, unpredictable, we don't know yet. This is the reality of what we're facing today. Luckily for you, we have this really easy tool, this 6-step process. And I brought it here today to the ICF Converge 2019 because the skills you need for this process are coaching skills. That's it. You coaches have a clear advantage over everyone else because you know the right skills. Let me give you an example. If we say in ambiguity, it's unknowable. So we can't know the right answers. What we do know that helps us to be great in ambiguity is asking the right questions. We're coaches. Questions are our thing, right? We know how to ask questions. So I'm going to show you the 6 steps. This is a very short session today, so I'm going to give you a really fast version. Come find me at the end if you want information about any of the other steps or anything else as we go through. So I say 6 steps, but actually they're broken down into 3 really simple stages. The first one is mindset. Thank you, coaches, you get that. We have to get our minds ready before we can actually move forward. The second stage is clarity. We have to be really clear about why we're doing and what are our objectives. And then and only then can we get to action. Shout it out. What do you think is the number one mistake that people make when trying to thrive in ambiguity? They go to action. We talked about this. They have adrenaline. They don't know what to do. They have nervous energy. They got to go somewhere. So they're like, well, I got to solve this problem and get some certainty. That sounds good. Don't do that. Use the steps in the order that they're given here. You won't burn energy. You won't burn time. Yes, it's a little bit more time up front, but it's a lot less time spinning your wheels on the back end. Okay? And that's a sneak peek preview of the 6 questions we're going to go through. We're going to go through each one individually. Let's start with number 1. Again, in the mindset stage, are we ready to face this ambiguous situation? What does it mean to be ready? I'm talking about brain readiness. And I have to admit, after watching Lisa Feldman-Barrett, I may need to change the slide a little bit. But I will also say this came from a WBEX program, so woohoo to WBEX for creating it. This is the way that our brain works, or how we're going to use it as a metaphor today, at least. We talk about thriving in ambiguity. When you're here in the amygdala, in the fear-based part of your brain, you're not ready to thrive. When you are here, and you can get to the prefrontal cortex, and you can get to the trusting place in your brain, you're ready to thrive. What's the biggest challenge to get from fear to trust? That sounds easy, Lisa. I'll just be in trust. The biggest challenge is that your brain processes information in what order? Amygdala first. Come on, we got to watch for our threats, right? As human beings, our number one job, it's great that we can think a lot of really powerful things and put a man on the moon, but our number one job for our bodies is to keep us alive. So thank you for that, but it's not functioning the way we want it to when we're looking at ambiguous situations. Step 1 is just about awareness. Step 2, we're going to get to how to move. But just starting to notice, hey, where is my brain right now? Oh, weird, I'm in this fear-based mode. I'm definitely not ready to thrive. And I'm talking today about teams because it gets more complex. If you're working with individuals or you just want to use this for yourself, ignore the team-based stuff. It still works for individuals. When you're working with teams or groups or organizations, you want to know, where does everybody in this group sit? Are we in fear-based mode? Are we the resistors? You all know the resistor. You've been in a meeting with the person who says, no, can't do it. We already tried it. It's been done. We don't have resources. We're already overworked. No. Yeah. So we want to notice first who's at the resistor phase, who's a little farther ahead, skeptical, wait and see, and who's on the side where they're actually using the parts of their brain where it's creativity and resilience and imagination, and notice who's there. That's when we get to step 2. Hey, coaches, this is also something that we do exceptionally well. We show people, okay, this is where you are. We create awareness, and then we give them choice. So now you're aware that you're operating from fear-based mode. Do you want to be? How many of you love to face a challenge when you're super scared and nervous and don't know how it's going to go, and that perfectionist is telling you it's not good enough? Okay, we got one person. Let's ask you for tips later. So who do we choose to be means that we get to create the space for choice. And I want to be really clear about something. The opposite of being afraid, the opposite of fear, is not courage. Courage, yes, it gets you to action in the moment. It does not change where your brain is at. It does not get you to the space where your brain is thriving. The opposite of fear is not courage, it's having trust. And I'm going to show you why. These are the behaviors that keep us in this fear mode, in this protect mode, okay? Anybody here love to be criticized? No? Weird. Anyone here go into a meeting and be like, I want everyone to think I'm really stupid? No? So we want to protect our reputation a little bit. We want to do a little bit of expertise management. But what that does is that puts you in fear mode. I might look stupid. People might think I'm doing something wrong. Better hunker down. And so in order to move, you have to know where you're headed. What's going to get your brain to switch? And this is behaviors, this is communications, this is thoughts. Hey, maybe I could appreciate that this is a really hard topic, but nobody else has ever done it before. How cool is that we get to discover something new and leave our mark on the world? Hey, someone just gave me really tough feedback. That was a blind spot of mine. Okay, well, if they noticed it, maybe other people noticed it too. This is an opportunity for me to get better and keep going on my mission. Notice that it's not courage, it's being open, being curious, and being trusting with your brain. I want to make sure that everybody doesn't have accidental relationships. I told you when we're talking with teams, we want to make sure that people have actively had the choice and chosen how they want to be together. And I facilitate this a lot with groups and with teams. How do you want to work together? First of all, many of them have never had this conversation. And second of all, all of them say the normal things. It's like trust, respect. We as coaches go deeper. Okay, what do you mean by respect? What does respect mean to you? And I was with a group last month, and they said, well, respect is, we haven't been respecting our colleague from Brazil. She's very relationship-oriented, and we're much more get to the point. And she's remote, and so when we're working, we just get to a meeting, and we say, here's the agenda, and we do step 1, 2, 3. We're not really respecting her culture and her personality. And they realized that on their own. So they decided, we want to do a little bit more of this intercultural training stuff. We want to really understand it, and we want to actively find ways to build into how we are together time to just build the relationship. They created that. So, like I said, we're going to be moving so fast. That's it for mindset. Notice where you are. Choose where you want to be. And then we get to clarity. And clarity is really important because we want to know, why are we doing this and what is it that we're trying to achieve? I did not say to start with why just because Simon Sinek has a really great book and TED Talk. I said start with why because it's the truth. You need to have a greater purpose. And I'm not just saying that because it feels nice. I'm saying that because the part of your brain that thrives in ambiguity likes to connect with a bigger picture, likes to connect that there is some goal we're headed towards. There is some security because we have some knowledge within us. And I could share a lot of stories about people not really starting with why, or what they start with, and you can see in the pictures here. Why? Because our competition's going to catch up with us. Why? Because we're falling behind in the market. There's a difference in saying why because you're running from something. That's fear-based. You want a why that you're running towards. That is your aspiration. And I'll tell you a quick story about my why. I feel like coaches will understand this. Maybe you haven't noticed I'm female, and I'm relatively young as an executive coach. True story, by the way. I walked into an office not too long ago, and they were like, oh, a new intern. It's so nice to see you. I was like, I'm here to coach your CEO. But my why is about connecting with people. I'm really in the digital future of work, I'm all about human-to-human connection and why human is so important in the digital era. And so as I started out, I was a bit insecure. Probably many of you were when you branch out on your own and you have your own business. And I would go, what do you mean a CEO wants to talk to me? I have to pretend to be a professional in front of them? And then I reconnected with my why. I'm here to connect human to human. So instead of thinking this is a CEO, I'm going to think here's a human who's reaching out and needs some help. And hey, maybe I'm the person who can help them. Maybe not, but maybe I can at least find the right person who is the right person to help them. We're just two humans trying to make things work. And that alleviated all of my stress. Now when I'm talking to CEOs and billionaires, I mean, I'm working with royalty, it's okay because they're just humans. And I want to create more human interactions and connections in the world. That's the power of having a why. We also want to know what it is we're doing, right? Again, you'd be shocked at how many teams do not align on this. And at the very end, some people will go, well, this was successful, and some people go, no, it wasn't. What? You didn't talk about this beforehand? When I talk to commercial people in sales, okay, fine, they say numbers, numbers, numbers. What about when I'm talking to the R&D team in a pharmaceutical company? Does every product that they make need to be a blockbuster hit? Or are they measuring how much they're learning with a failed experiment, or how far it got, or what new information they've received? You have to know what your objectives are, and that creates already so much clarity that you're no longer scrambling in ambiguity going, what are we supposed to be working on? Now it's clear, it's focused. Then and only then can we figure out, hey, what's the real problem that we're actually trying to solve? Someone far smarter than I am said if he had an hour, he would spend 55 minutes focusing on the problem. I think that's a really good idea. You can solve perfectly a problem and come up with a fantastic, wonderful, amazing solution that nobody wants or cares about. Is that helpful? No. So we want to make sure that we're solving the right problem. You as coaches, you've experienced this. How many of you have clients and they come in and they say, I'm not sure if I should take this new job offer, or we're thinking about moving to a new house. That's their presenting problem. What's the real problem? They don't know what to do with uncertainty, or they're afraid of loss, or there's something deeper there. Same thing goes when we're looking at real problems, when we're looking at innovation, when we're looking at strategy. When we're looking at customers, what is the actual problem that's being faced? And then, and only then, do we get to action. So we've gotten, our minds are ready, we've got clear objectives, clear understanding of why we're going to do this, what we're setting out to do. What data will we use? And many people ask me, why in the heck does that fall under action? And I'm going to show you in a minute. The very first thing that you do with data, you do a data dump. Just throw every piece of information you have out there. This does two things. One, it creates some certainty. You do have facts to work with. And two, it allows you to unearth what's a fact and what's an assumption. Because assumptions in this fast-paced changing world, even if the assumption was true a year ago, 6 months ago, it might not still be true now. And too often we keep an assumption for far too long and it's no longer relevant and no longer true. So this gives us the opportunity to assess, is this really the information we want to use? Is this really the assumption we want to make? Then we start action. Data scientists will tell you it's not a problem of having enough data. We have too much data. We have to make sense of the data that we have and make it usable. So now we're starting to say, what's relevant? What do we throw out? We don't want to keep that data dump overwhelm. We want to find the key pieces and keep those. Now, we as coaches are fantastic. I can tell you, when I go to clients, when they're sorting what's relevant, what kind of a question do you think that they ask themselves? They always ask a closed question. Is this relevant? Yes, no, maybe. And from experience, I can tell you 90% falls in the maybe category and you haven't sorted anything. But we as coaches know open-ended questions. So how might this be relevant? Does two things. First of all, it opens your imagination and your possibility. Oh, I can imagine, oh, this might be relevant because we could try this. It also helps you to finish that thread. So you say, how might this be relevant? Okay, it could be used for this, but we don't really want to do that. It doesn't align anymore. So now we can throw it out. So this is where the action starts coming in. And there's another part of action in data. Creating data, what does that mean? Businesses are always looking for a competitive advantage, right? What they forget is that their employees and the employee creativity is the competitive advantage. So we can create data by looking for metaphors, for example. And I'll give you this great story. So many of you probably remember in 1989, there was this Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska. Covered the oceans, terrible. 20 years later, they still hadn't cleaned up all of the oil. And they had millions invested, the best engineers in the world, trying to work on it and figure it out. But they couldn't because the oil had become such a texture that it was like peanut butter. And they couldn't just sort of scoop it up out of the ocean. So after 20 years of trying and failing, they put it on a public site, and it was an innovation site, and anyone, you or I, could have answered how to solve this problem. And a chemist saw this, and he said, okay, but I don't think we should add more chemicals because there's already enough chemicals in this ocean. So how else might we solve this? And then he thought, okay, I know when I'm drinking those like slushy drinks and it gets like really icy at the end, I need a straw to mix it so that I can get it back up through. He said, that's interesting. That actually reminds me, this one time I was helping my neighbor to like pour cement to build new steps at his house. And at the very top, the cement was drying too fast before we could pour it. So one of the experts came over and he had this thing like a concrete vibrator stick that he could move, and all of a sudden the concrete would be liquid again. And so this chemist thought, could we just put a giant like straw vibrator stick thing into the ocean? And he wrote literally, I think it was like a 2-page proposal, and they saw it and they were like, yeah, that could work. And that's how they finished cleaning up the excess oil from that spill, right? So he wasn't an expert engineer in oil. What he was a creative thinker looking to find new information from new and unique sources. That's why this is an action. We are now at the very end. What are our next steps? This is really important, and I'm so glad that you heard it this morning. It was great. I couldn't have even paid for a better introduction than our keynote speaker earlier this morning. He said, you gotta go step by step. I forget the exact words, it's next executable step, something like that. Small executable step, thank you. And it's exactly right. Because when you're thriving in ambiguity, you have the big picture, you know sort of the goals, you know the purpose of what you're trying to do, but you do not have all the answers. Remember, it's uncertain, unknowable. We have to go step by step, because when we get to data point 1, now we have new information and we can assess it. And we've made progress, and sometimes it's progress towards the goal, and sometimes it's just, well, that didn't work, so we have to try something new. But either way, it's progress. So we have to plan according to mini milestones and mini steps, and we have to celebrate those. By the way, I'm a certified project management professional. You're never going to hear this at a PMI conference. They want the full plan. And you might hear that from organizations as well. And you can say, let's save the time and the energy, and let's put in the milestones. This is a step that people absolutely 100% of the time forget to do. Maybe 99%, your coaches, you're probably at a better percentage. We've now gone through, we've sorted the data, we've figured everything out, we're all feeling good. Okay, we know what our next steps are, and you're doing that, and Johnny's doing that, and Phil's doing that, and Jane is doing that. Stop and check in. Because in a meeting, under pressure, many people will say, yes, I'll do that. And then they go back to their desks and they put their heads down and they hope no one remembers that they were supposed to do it, or they tell you that they're busy with another priority. What you want to do at the very end, when action steps have been decided, is check in again. How's everybody feeling? Do we have any resistors? Do we have any wait and see folks? Are there people who aren't bought in yet? And if so, how can we help? What would it take to get you? So we go back a little bit to mindset because we want to make sure that we're continually checking in. Setting mindset for thriving in ambiguity is a consistent process. We do it over and over, maybe even every day or before every meeting. It's not you set the mindset one time and we're good to go, right? So check in so your project will stay on track. Did I promise you 6 really easy steps? So this is what you're noticing. Again, go in this order, ask these 6 very simple steps, and you will get your clients and yourself to an amazing place where you feel confident that you can take on whatever the situation is. This was so fast, and there's so much more information I want to tell you about thriving in ambiguity and everything else in the world. So I want to make sure that you have my contact information. Find me, after this on the app, on LinkedIn, wherever you prefer, and let's start having conversations, because this is, if you haven't noticed, the topic that we're going to be facing going forward. Okay? I know, so important. Everybody wants this code. 1961. And I'll put it up here again at the very end. So 1961 for the CCE units. I think we don't have time for questions, but as mentioned, I'm happy to stay here afterwards. We have a coffee break now, so there's plenty of time to chat. What I do want to share with you, I started by talking about my husband and him seeking certainty and stability. And I want to wrap up with that thought as well, because I think that's something to some level we're all seeking. And we have to acknowledge that that certainty probably isn't going to come, and what we're facing is an ever-changing, ambiguous world. So if we can't have certainty and stability, the next best thing that we can have are tools like this that help us to feel confident and help us to trust. No matter what comes our way, we're going to be able to thrive when we face ambiguity. Thank you.